Hello guys, welcome back to a new webinar session here in the Udacity blockchain and agree. I'm happy to be today here with all. I see that many of you are connected. Hello Daniela, hello Michelle, hello Michael. Well, as you know, I asked you to send me prior to this session some questions and some topics that you wanted to discuss about this lesson, this webinar that is related to Truffle and how to test and deploy smart contracts with Truffle. I received many of your questions, and I worked before on some of the solutions and to share that with you. So well, this I'm going to tell you how the dynamics of this webinar is going to work. First, we're going to talk about Truffle. I'm going to explain it a little bit. I'm going to explain the tools that we're going to use. Then I'm going to talk about how to configure Truffle. Then how to test the contracts in Truffle, and finally how to deploy it. And we're going to show it. Finally, I'm going to talk about the questions that you had and that you previously emailed me and through the student hub also. I want to tell you that it is very important for this session to be useful for you, to be very interactive. So please ask me a lot of questions, interrupt me, so that I can clarify the things that you don't understand and that you can find this a lot more useful. Okay, so first I'm going to start explaining what is Truffle. Okay, Truffle is a framework that we're going to use and that is right now very popular for developing smart contracts, for developing smart contracts, testing them, and deploying them. So it's going to be helpful for us for the whole workflow process of developing a smart contract and a DApp. First, I want to tell you a few tips of of how to learn more about Truffle and understand it better. Although I'm going to explain it, I think that it is important, and this is what I do also when I'm studying a new topic, to go to the website and read the whole documentation. Documentation, fortunately for Truffle, is very good, and it is easy to understand, and it's not too very long. It's not very long, so I totally recommend that you take some time to read it all, and to try to take out some of the most important things about it and its components. So remember always, when you're studying a new thing, a new framework, try to understand why it is important, what its functionality, and what does it do, when do you need to use it, and that will. I recommend that when you read the documentation, you try to work on doing some diagrams, some concept diagrams, and activity diagrams, and those kind of things, to organize the ideas of the documentation that you think that is important and that's going to help you. Okay, so let's start. Well, as I said in the beginning, Truffle is a framework that's going to help you through the whole workflow process of developing a smart contract. We're going to work in this session with Truffle 5.0 and with Ganesh too. This is very important because Truffle, this is a very important thing because Ganache is a very useful local network tool that helps us to have a local test network in blockchain, so we can test all our smart contracts locally, and is fundamental to have it in Truffle to be able to test it and deploy it locally, so we can use the contract without having to deploy it to a real network. Okay, and so the first thing that we need to do is to install a Truffle. Here are the instructions that you can see. Okay, now that we have installed Truffle, let's begin by opening the boilerplate code that we have for this exercise. And okay, let's see some of the important things that we have here. Okay, okay, yeah, I see that Michael is here writing a question. Okay, what is the truffle.js file? Okay, I was just going to talk about that file. Well, yeah, here in Truffle, when we create a new project, and in this case of this boilerplate, there's always a structure. So there is the contracts folder that has all the smart contracts, and that's where we're going to put all the smart contracts. Then there is the migrations folder. What is the migration folder? It has the instructions, some files. That what do? They have the instructions on how to deploy the contracts, no, to a local network, or to a network, to a local network, or to a test network in the internet, or to the real network. That's what they are used to. Then we have the test folder that has the files for the tests. The tests are very useful, and we are going to write our tests using JavaScript. So it's a very easy language, and it's very useful. It's very easy to test. And now let's see the other files. Here, and one of the most important, that is the truffle.js file. What is this file? This is the configuration file. So remember that. What is important, this file? This file is where we configure many important things for our contracts, and for the deployment of the contracts also, and for the connection to the local network. So as we can see here, you have this some of the instructions of which are the networks that we want to deploy our contract. That is fundamental for deploying the contract for real, or for testing it. Without it, we cannot do that, because this tells Truffle where is the location of the network that we want to use. Okay, so now we have this, and we have this test. We have this smart contract that I built for you. What do we do now? Okay, the first thing is that we want to test our file, our smart contract. How do we do that? Okay, so first we have to have ganache. The ganache network working. What is ganache? What is the importance of ganache? Can someone tell me? Yeah, we always remember what is important. Remember that for everything we need to know what it is, why it is important. What it is a blockchain network. Why it is a Ethereum network, and why it is important? Because without it, we could not test our files locally, our smart contracts locally. So okay, how do we run it? Now we start Ganache, then we in the console run truffle test, and as you can see in the terminal, we can see that all the tests pass, and that's how it works. So if the tests pass in these tests, that means that our contract is good, and that it is going to work well in a real network. Sometimes, so you have to be confident when the tests pass that your code is okay. Sometimes when we deploy it to a network like Ganache and test it for real or to an Rigby, we may encounter some problems. But if our tests pass, be sure that the problems are not related to the logic, but to other things. Maybe that you are not using enough gas. Maybe you're not connecting to the right network. Also, maybe that the accounts that you're using don't have enough funds. That is very typical. So, if your tests are okay, I say the first thing is trust your tests and try to check on those things. And if that doesn't work, well, then we go again and try to take a look at the tests and see if we are making maybe some simplifications and other things need to be taken into account. Okay, and my friends, now let's go to a Q&A, to questions that were asked previously before the session that I asked, and I'm here to help. Okay, let's see. Okay, here the question from my friend Michael. I can't run the tests in Truffle. It seems that I have a bug. Okay, one of the typical problems that we do is that the Ganache network is in a different port than the one that we specified in the Truffle configuration document. So, as I looked more in the code from Michael, that was what happening. So, if you have that problem, always remember to a checklist. Remember that Ganache has to be in the same port as you specify in your truffle.js file. Okay, guys, and this is it. I'm very happy to be here with you, and remember, the next webinar is going to be next week, and we're going to talk about developing the app with oracles. So try to look at try to read to see the lectures, look at the exercise, and send me questions before the webinar that you would like me to answer. Okay, guys, have a nice day.